episode 18, and this week I have the guys from VyFi talking about their new concept of decentralized finance, which mixes in with the traditional hedge fund. Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Learn Cardano podcast, the podcast where we break down all the ins and outs of Cardano so that you can explain it to your mother-in-law, which I still can't do. I'm trying, I really am. This week, I have the guys from VyFi. I have Stephen Ward and Jack Cohen talking about their decentralized finance platform, which blends in with the traditional hedge fund. They've pulled in all sorts of interesting things like a auto harvester, a neuronet, AI, all these buzzwords really, which didn't really mean much to me when looking at it at a glance. But once we delve in really deep to the core fundamentals of what they're trying to do, it all makes perfect sense. But before we get into that, just a real quick news cap for this week. All right, a couple of news stories for this week. The first one being Project Catalyst is up for voting. Fund 5 is out and you can vote for it now if you have registered for your wallet to go and vote. So please make sure you vote on some really cool projects. There's lots out there to check out. I did a video on our YouTube channel in regards to how to vote for various projects that have submitted proposals. So please check that out. Check out our YouTube channel and you'll find it there. I'll post a link to it in the show notes for this as well. Another really cool thing that has come out last week is Patrick Tobler. He has put together a pro version of his NFT maker.io site, which will allow projects to launch their NFT brands. So if you're doing a big NFT project where you're launching a couple of thousand unique NFTs or something like that, this pro tool will allow you to put together the sale for that entire process. It's really cool. I'll do a video on this and it'll be on our YouTube channel and you can check out exactly how it works. I'll be minting one of my partners, Martina's artworks, and putting it into a little series. It's a little meditation cards that she has done, a series of 4 of them. So I'll put it together on the platform there and we'll see how it actually goes. So if you want to see how a NFT project could be launched on this, check out our YouTube channel. I'll be piecing that together this week. Now, I'll leave the news items at that for this week, just because this interview I did with the VyFi team is quite long. I had a lot of questions. I wanted to go through a lot of things and we got off topic a little bit as well, but we had a lot of fun recording this one. So I really hope you enjoy it and I really hope you get something out of it. So let's get right into it. Right. So I have Stephen Ward and Jack Cohen from the VyFi project. And these guys are working on something quite cool to bring to the Cardano ecosystem and to regular investors in general. I've been going through this project a little bit to try and understand it better, but I've gotten these guys on to explain it all for us. I'm still trying to go through their white paper and understand some of these extremely complex diagrams, which I'm still trying to piece together and work out. But thank you so much, guys, for joining me on the podcast.
That's a pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
All right. So first off, I always start off with a little bit of a background for our interviewees. So Stephen, could you just explain a little bit about your background in regards to how you got into this space and how you discovered Cardano? And then Jack, we'll go with you after that.
Absolutely. So my background was as a day trader, really. I worked at a hedge fund, working in bonds, international bonds and short-term interest rates. From there, I moved into financial advisory within investments. It was within this space that I got a bit of a distaste for the industry. I was fortunate enough to be a financial advisor in a bank during our Royal Commission, which was a lot of fun. Yeah, you know what happened.
I know. So.
And then from there, I just kind of jumped at the opportunity when I saw that there was an option to sort of manage myself trading, I jumped at that opportunity. I had years of trading experience and I realized that I did have the capacity to do this full time. And then once I'd started doing it full time, about a year and a little over a year ago, That's when I sort of thought to myself, I would love to be able to manage my own project, and with my skills, I think I can put one together. So we started.
Okay, so I'm assuming you're quite a successful trader doing it by yourself as well.
Yeah, I don't want to boast.
Yeah, sure, fair enough. And Jack, what's your background?
So, what I went to like college for and whatnot was completely different than what I'm doing now. I went for neuro and then anthropology. And, now I ended up in crypto because while I was doing all that, and even a bit before that, when I was still in high school at the time, Bitcoin was very new. And just seeing this new upcoming technology, I was involved with like computer, games and whatnot. So communities and all that. And you'd be around like fellow nerdy, like-minded people. So I heard about Bitcoin fairly early on. And I've just been watching it go. I never thought, and you hear that so commonly, but it's so true. I never thought it would get to like what it is today. Because a long time ago, it was just like, we didn't even consider it a cryptocurrency. We saw it as like the next step in a cool technology that might get replaced by something else that a company will do or something. So it's great to see the same Bitcoin that's been there, still be the king, still be around and all that. And I'm not really a maximalist, but it's just nice to see where we've come, As far as this, that was where Cardano kind of came into, because, they're efficient. And for what we're trying to do, we've seen it be attempted before on other chains. Might as well try it here and see if we can avoid some of those issues that we keep seeing.
So who wants to do the 30-second elevator pitch and explain what VyFi actually is and how it actually differs to the competition in the market at the moment? I think I did a little head count. There might have been like 10 or 14 different DEXs and DeFi solutions at the moment that are being built on Cardano. What's yours about?
Look, I would say that the principal difference between us is two things. First, we're integrating AI in a manner that's never been integrated before on the blockchain with our integration of a neural net, which we'll talk about later, I have no doubt. This is going to give us the capacity to be able to hopefully respond more quickly to market conditions than other DEXs. We're also integrating ourselves with an educational layer to bring the newcomers that are being brought onto Cardano in particular, coming from all over the world, to help teach them the capacity to be able to manage themselves in what is honestly a fairly risky environment. We're also integrating with a neural net, with an auto harvester, which means that we're integrating the capacity to actually deliver income from across the ecosystem, not just from our platform, and deliver that income from across the ecosystem to users of our platform. So there's quite a few original integrations that we're doing within this project.
Okay. That just leads me with more questions at the moment. All right. So first off, I do want to break down all these features. I've gone through the white paper, I've gone through the website, and there's a whole bunch of things that I don't quite understand. First off, why do you need the AI?
So the AI fits in twofold. I think the best way to describe it to you is by describing what it is that we're doing with that AI.
Okay.
When we're managing any sort of liquidity pools, right? And I'm sure you've used DeFi before.
Actually, haven't.
Haven't you? Okay, no. So there's this risk.
I missed the whole 2020 thing where DeFi became a thing, and I just never touched it. I've interviewed many other DEXs, and I've gone into the ideas and concepts, and I've taught a lot of people that it now, but I have not touched anything because of gas fees. Oh, well, you're lucky now that there are multiple chains that can take care of that for you. And wait till Cardano comes online. But look, so essentially there's this risk called impermanent risk that you have when putting money in liquidity pools. And it essentially involves one of those tokens losing its value. And once it's lost its value, that liquidity pool has all the valuable token pulled out of it. So if you've supplied your money to that liquidity pool, you have the risk of one of those tokens going to hell and getting your money taken away, right? Now, there's lots of systems to measure this risk and then to compare this risk to the payout for any specific yield farm, right? But there is no aggregate system right now that allows traders to compare the risk to the yield. And there's no aggregate system telling you, based on the comparison of risk to the yield, where should I be putting my money for the risk level that I want?
So this data exists, but none of it is munged. And the term is actually munging. When you take data, you do stuff to it and you spit it out the other side where it's actually useful, right? Now, so we're essentially looking at munging this data and then creating a bot that will manage based on predefined risk ratios. So the entire concept of this is to actually simplify the entire process. It all sounds really complex, but if you were to look at a current auto harvester like Harvest.finance or even VyFi, they're all not very user-friendly and they're all rather complex, which is because it's a rather complex system, right? We're building this bot to basically take care of all of those complex systems on behalf of the user. So all the user has to see is a deposit button, a withdraw button, a current value of what they have deposited, and whether they want low, medium, or high risk. So it's all about taking all those systems and getting a big machine to take care of it all for us so that the user only has to press a button.
Okay. So probably just explain how it works on Uniswap, for example. So if I was providing liquidity to a Uniswap pool, what's the process that I'd go through for that compared to what you guys have?
So for the auto harvester, for Uniswap, you would need to first find the liquidity pool that you're interested in. Ideally, understand the mechanics of both coins that are involved, so you know the risks involved in purchasing the second coin. Then you would have to exchange half of your money for the coin that you want to put into the liquidity pool with your Ethereum. Then you have to go deposit it into the liquidity pool, at which point you're holding all the impermanent risk of that one coin. And then from there, you farm manually yourself, where you have to pay gas fees every time you farm. And then if the trade starts going against you, you have to manually withdraw and then swap your token back into Ethereum.
Right. Okay. That does sound like quite a manual process.
There's a very manual process involved. Now, this system that we want to produce, and we've had to create some pretty interesting implementations that we're still playing around with. But essentially, we want our auto harvester to work in such a way that you arrive, you deposit ADA, and you withdraw ADA. The other advantage that we have as well is that because we will be working on a larger scale, we'll be able to manage that money across multiple pools. So whereas an average user will arrive with, let's say, and I really mean this in terms of the average user that Cardano is aiming at, which are the users in Africa, the users in Southeast Asia, the users in South America. They arrive with half of their life savings of 130 Cardano, right? And they arrive into a world that is completely and utterly, honestly, foreign. They've never had a bank account. They've never had a deposit account, let alone managing impermanent risk across multiple liquidity pools. And we want to give them the opportunity to be able to manage it in one currency and give them access to multiple liquidity pools at once. Because if you've got a small volume, you don't have enough money to put your money into 12 different places. You can only put it in one.
Right. Gotcha. Is this what you mean when you're across different ecosystems, or is that something different? Gotcha.
No, that's exactly correct.
Yeah.
Right. So we're basically, a very, very important part of our model is to have competition, right? Because we require a nice, big ecosystem so that we can average out the risk across all those ecosystems or all those different platforms for our users. I wish we could say we had the safest platform in the world. I really wish we could. But the reality is everyone's at risk of a hack at some point. That's the reality of this industry, right? So if we're going to be taking new people's money and we're going to be assisting them in engaging with DeFi, we want to be able to implement risk-saving mechanics for them so that if any one platform gets hit, there isn't a complete loss of people's funds, right? And that's another security advantage that we can bring by offering a liquidity aggregator, an aggregate farm for people to use.
Okay. So that explains the auto harvesting side of things. Okay, brilliant. Now, in going through the website and the white paper, there's a whole bunch of other things here as well. So there was a couple of things that make sense to me straight away, and that's the governance and the educational material. But could you guys talk about the governance a little bit in regards to how you're organizing this?
I mean, our current governance setup will be similar to what people have seen in the past, which is that through a governance token, VyFi will have its governance capabilities. And it will be done in ways that we've known, like voting through epochs and whatnot. Cardano's epoch is currently 5 days. Yeah, Cardano's epochs are around 5 days. So, as you know, we hope to be a proper DeFi where once it's launched, governance will be doing all of the decisions and it's being properly decentralized and the users are making their full choices, as they are. And there will also be a way that users will, I believe, get, I wasn't sure if we were finalized on the name, Steve, but VyFi for participating in the bar. And that would also go back to show as to how much they're giving to the entire ecosystem. But to say, as far as our governance, that would not really be the most unique thing. It's the same kind of governance platform that you see across a lot of different cryptocurrencies, which is using like the token and the users having the token.
Yep. Okay. What I wanted to get into is like how users would be voting on particular decisions and what particular things they'll be voting on, and how often would this happen, and how would it all impact them in regards to what they're voting on.
So the platform that we're using is, I'm not going to say a name in case I get it wrong, but there is a platform that we do use for this, where essentially it looks at how many tokens you have, and then based on the number of our tokens that you hold, you get a specific number of votes associated with that. The kind of decisions that we're looking at implementing would be voting decisions with regards to farm payouts, for example. So we're looking at implementing a new farm in our DEX. Do we want to give this farm a 1x, 2x, or 3x multiplier? Or here are 15 tokens that we're looking at opening up a farm for. Which one of these tokens should we open up a farm for? Another one that things that people can vote on would be things such as if we want to host some kind of event, or if we want to be able to do some kind of project to our ecosystem and we require a funding from our marketing budget or a funding from our token supply, should we be allowed to use our token supply to achieve that goal? And those decisions will be managed by the community.
Okay. How are people going to know what these tokens are and whether they should be allowing you guys to allow into the ecosystem?
Well, these tokens would be people that hold our VyFi. That's what gives you the voting.
No, I don't mean the voting tokens, the VyFi tokens. I mean like what farms you may be adding into the protocol.
Oh, yeah. So at the moment, we've already partnered with a few people that we're looking at. The first, we can't say announcements that haven't been officially made yet, but we can certainly say that we're starting with a C3, farm. We're also going to be starting with a farm for a virtual reality game called Cornucopias. They're the only two that I'm allowed to sort of really talk about right now, because the rest are all in the pipeline. But I can certainly say that we're talking to at least 5 or 6 other projects as we speak that are interested in opening farms, and we're still 2.5 months out. So I'd imagine we'll have more before then.
Okay, great. So I'm assuming the process is you'd educate the users somehow, announce it, and then with a lot of material, and they'll just go and vote.
Yeah,
a little summary or whatnot, and then links to get the information that they might want to see before making such a decision.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. That makes sense.
Would actually ask the projects to provide that information as well. That's what they do on Sushi. So the project provides the information showing their stuff, and then the community gets to vote.
As part of the signing up process.
Okay. So this whole process already exists on SushiSwap or... Yep. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Like I said, I haven't seen any of this stuff. I've missed out on 2020.
So and they do it well.
And this is a great chance, particularly if I imagine your community doesn't use much of this stuff either. This is a great chance to introduce them to these concepts that are available to them, because you'd never get to vote on anything that happens in a bank.
Oh
no. I wish.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I even want to, actually.
No, you don't know what you'll see.
All right. Okay. Cool. Now let's get into some of these other parts of the structure that you guys have, which I'm trying to work out. Everything from what's now named as international markets, which I think had a name change at some point. Your Neuronet, which you've spoken a little bit about, and what's behind that from, I think you're working with some of the people behind Propeller AI.
Yeah, that's correct.
And I looked into that as well, and I still don't understand what they're doing. Then you have offshore banks, the VyFi bar, and is there anything else?
So Propeller AI is a consultancy that specializes in geospatial geospatial statistics. That's the one. Now, they essentially integrate neural nets into property trading bots for the Australian housing market. And they also do it for the commercial real estate market and the industrial real estate market. So these guys have got years and years and years of experience integrating statistical models into trading algorithms and then implementing those trading algorithms on the market. So that's, we want to have the best in the business in Australia to help us build this neural net, because we're doing some pretty new things here, implementing a neural net onto the blockchain. With respect to, before we talk about international markets, could we actually discuss I would like to discuss that educational layer between the DEX and the auto harvester, and because that then links into international markets, and you'll see how it all comes together as a structure.
Okay, so
Right.
let's talk about the educational content, that educational layer, and what that actually means for your platform.
Absolutely. So people that come on board and use our auto harvester, which is that really simplified UI, very easy to use, everything is just ADA and you don't have to think much. Anyone who holds a token to represent the ownership or that they've deposited in our auto harvester will gain access to our educational learning management system, which is our LMS. Now, I've noticed that there's absolutely no centralized repository across all of DeFi for information regarding DeFi. There's a lot of information, but it's all disparate and everywhere. So I want to set up an introductory training course for DeFi and an introductory training course for keeping yourself safe while learning to trade crypto. And I want to give all new users who have engaged with our auto harvester the option of then engaging with our educational systems. And the purpose of those educational systems is to actually bring people down to the next layer, which is our DEX, the decentralized exchange. So that decentralized exchange is going to be a lot more similar to the other exchanges that you've been talking to, the Sunday swaps, Mint swaps, right? You swap tokens, you provide liquidity, and you farm that liquidity. But we want to create a step-by-step process that takes users from that top layer with very little conceptual understanding needed to engage through to that bottom layer where they're managing their own funds and have learned how those systems actually work. Now, we're already actually starting with the trading education on our Discord, which I'd suggest any of your users should go have a look at.
I'm stalking it.
Oh, you're stalking it?
Yep.
Beautiful. I run a trading channel on that Discord, as you may have seen, trading education channel. And we also have an analyst in there with me, Koffer 4X. And together we've been, honestly, the group's been doing really well the last few weeks, which is great.
And the thing with the Discord, though, is that it's also like a general trading hub. So while it's about VyFi, whatnot, you can discuss any currency in there. You can discuss the market. You can discuss, you shouldn't feel afraid to ask a question that might be considered like a dumb or silly question. That's not really a thing. We have a chat just for that. Stocks even. But yeah, it's also a generic crypto hub in general that happens to be hosted by VyFi. And we have our own little subsection there. So users can join just to talk about crypto and learn more about the market.
Yeah, I love how you're building up your community there as well. It's good to see. And I think having that community engagement is probably one of the most important things after you've built the platform, getting the users on board and selling the system for you in the end.
That's it. And the main reason why we started that whole sort of concept of getting that educational side and that community side going is because of our philosophy of wanting to implement this educational layer into our platform, right? So we began our entire system with a trading education channel. That's the first thing we did when we started this project. And that is at the core of what we're trying to do, we're trying to bring these systems to as many people as possible.
There's a bit of overlap here, guys. You probably don't know, but I've been working on our own LMS for the podcast channel. We've taken the same approach in regards to education. So educate the users, get them to understand exactly what's going on and how to actually get into crypto, and then start. For us, it's literally start staking and understanding the staking process and understanding how Cardano and ADA works. So we're still going through that process of building the LMS. But the type of content that we are building, it doesn't cross over to what you guys are doing. It's much more advanced.
We should certainly have a chat, though. I would love to have a chat about that after the interview.
Yeah.
And while we're teaching users, what with the neural net integrated auto harvester options that we were discussing earlier, the users that may not want to learn, so to speak, they can now just see low, medium, high risk. And then the experts, the people that really know their stuff, they'll have the ability to have more, ability, so to speak. They'll be able to make decisions that you might have to tick a little box that says that you're an expert or intermediate beforehand, but now you have, full power over your DeFi as we see in other places. And just quickly to go back to the governance really quick, that is something that's kind of, I don't really think we'll be seeing many drastic changes to how any platform does their governance model in the near future. It's done in a pretty satisfactory way across the ecosystem.
The other thing that I wanted to mention was that in terms of people that don't want to learn, or it's rather people that don't want to, if you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you've got a day job that takes a lot of time, you're earning your money other ways. You don't have time to sit there and study DeFi. But we still want to deep dive. And that's fair enough. If you're busy deep diving into maritime law, you probably don't have the time. But if for these users, we want to create a system for them where they can still access that average return across the ecosystem without having to worry about managing the individual liquidity pools one by one, right? And that's an option that I think is sorely lacking in the environment as it stands.
And that, I think, is what I got out of everything that I've researched about you guys. It sounds like I can literally just get into the app, deposit my ADA into the bar, from what I understand, and then just walk away.
That's the idea, yeah.
Great.
Okay,
this interview's done.
The bar is a great part about it. The bar, it grabs from the whole ecosystem. So let's say you're not sure what to do. Perhaps the market's trending sideways or something. You're not sure what to do. The market's going in a situation that you personally are not the most confident with. The bar, there you go. You can stake to the bar. Now you're earning from the entire ecosystem's rewards. It's if you're uncertain what to do, here's a nice option right in front of your face that's satisfactory, and you'll get a solid return out of it.
And that's actually, the bar is probably the implementation that I'm most excited about. So the entire idea is that from all the ecosystem, people who hold our token get access to the income from the entire ecosystem. So a percentage of all the fees that are done on the exchanges on the DEX, percentage of all the farm that's made on the auto harvester, a percentage of all the farm that's made in international markets, which we'll talk about straight after this one, that all gets sent to the bar, right? And now whilst it's sent to the bar, we convert all of that income from across the ecosystem into our token VyFi, and then we distribute it to everyone that's holding VyFi at our bar, right? So essentially, just by holding VyFi, you can access a percentage of all the profits across the ecosystem. The entire idea being that you farm VyFi by providing liquidity, you take that VyFi, and that's now your ownership stake in our company. And then you take that and not in our company, sorry, it's your ownership share of the fees generated by the business. And then you take that and you can get access to those fees. Look, the entire idea, and I know that those diagrams look very complex, and I enjoy the complexity. That's why we did put them there. We want people to know that we do know what we're talking about. But the entire concept, as you alluded to before, is that we want a system which essentially takes that complexity out of the hands of the user and allows us to manage that complexity if the user wants, but still allows the user the option to engage with those systems if they so desire. If you want to just deposit ADA and walk away, you certainly can. But if you want to manage it, you can also do that.
Okay.
I think I have one of them here. The diagrams are a little much, but when you take the time to digest them, they're also very English, But one thing that I've noticed too is you can kind of, let's say if you're the end user, someone who's watching this interview right now, and they're saying, where would I fit into this diagram? I'd recommend you start by finding yourself, find maybe the buy bar or something, work outward. And then you'll see, here's all the points where I'd be getting potential incomes. Here's where this supports that. And it all comes together. So yeah, they're a lot, but they got, there's a legend, there's a key and stuff. So it's definitely one of those things you have to kind of sit down and look at for a bit. But
if you're willing to take the time, it certainly comes together. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what I will do is actually break it down into an animated slide to actually take the user through the different parts. So starting at the bar, then looking at the decentralized exchange, liquidity pool sections, and then looking into the international markets, which I'd like to get into as well and understand how is that all working. What's the story behind the international markets?
International markets is kind of where this whole thing started, really. I run my own little proprietary trading firm. That's how I make my income. Excuse my language. A proprietary trading firm is similar to a hedge fund, but instead of using the public's money, you only use the private money, right? So it's kind of like a hedge fund for family and friends is a good way to think about it. That is how I make my principal income and how I'm able to fund this entire project. So we are mostly self-funded through that. Now I want to extend that system so that we've already got we got our auto harvester that's managing DeFi on behalf of people. So we want to integrate that into an app similar to Raise, if you know Raise, or Acorns, as it's called in America, where essentially users can log in, they can just put in their money, a little bit every month or however much they so choose, and then we take that and we perform DeFi on their behalf through our auto harvester for them. Right?
All right.
And then all they have to do is press the harvest button, and then that cash comes straight into their app.
Yep. Okay. So this sounds better and better as you explain a little bit more and more. Well, when you compare it to something that someone's already familiar with, such as Acorns or Raise, Raise is one of those apps that I use as well. It suddenly makes a little bit more sense.
So we want it to be the Raise of DeFi, essentially.
Yeah.
And within that, that is a further just integration of our concept of wanting to take the effort away from the user, right? So we've got the auto harvester designed for the newcomer to crypto who's really interested in crypto, or maybe the person who holds crypto and knows what they're doing but doesn't have the time to go deeper. Then we've got the DEX for those that have the time to go deeper, and it allows us to properly manage our platform because we need a DEX to be able to manage all these decentralized things. And then we have the auto harvester for those that don't really know how to go about crypto, but recognize the advantage of taking on crypto risk.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Now, there's one question I had with the international market side of things. It's because it's that private entity, would I be owning shares in that? Like what's the security?
No. It's called a unitized trust. You'll be purchasing units of that trust. That does require us to complete our licensing for our Australian Financial Services license, the AFSL, as we would be regulated through ASIC for that. We're actually all prepared to do so. We're just, honestly, it costs $50,000 or so. And at the moment, we're putting the money into building our platform first. And then once we've built our platform, we're going to be going for the licensing because we do have the skills required. As in, we've got a lawyer, we've got the accountants, I'm the financial advisor. This is why we have a 2-year project. If you go look at our timeline, it's not putting this whole system together Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah. You need time to build everything out and get all the legalities sorted.
That's it.
So we're owning units of the trust.
That's correct. If you were to purchase in. So it's actually very similar if you open your Raise app, right? When you purchase your Raise app, you select what risk you want, and then you purchase units of that risk portfolio, right? And the way that they present it to you is just as a dollar figure. But what's actually happening in the background is that you've purchased units of a unit trust that then they attribute to your account, and they just keep value, the amount of units you have multiplied by the value per unit. And then that's the value that they show you at the front.
Gotcha. I use Spaceship as well, and Spaceship shows the actual units and the unit cost.
Shows the actual units, do they?
Yeah.
So perfect. So Spaceship actually breaks it down.
Yeah. Spaceship is one of those other investing apps. Now, how does this affect users in the US? Are they affected by any of these security laws or anything? Because they always seem to be.
The only thing I want to say at the moment is that we do have a consultant lawyer in the US specialized in crypto, and we will be moving ahead with caution, particularly before implementing something along the lines of international markets specifically. The DEX and the auto harvester less so. In that, for example, you can use Uniswap in America. So with respect to international markets, that's going to be a big stepping stone and a bit of a hurdle in America.
Yeah, there is a trade and tax treaty that may find some little parts in it that can help us out down the line. So we do have that going between our two countries that should help.
You're actually investing in an Australian company, not investing in an American company, and therefore it's an Australian investment, not an American investment. So there are loopholes that we've got to go look at through treaties.
Interesting. That could be a nice advantage of having this set up in Australia for American users.
Oh,
part of why Jack was excited.
Yeah, and I'm a New Yorker especially, so it's like I might not see it for a bit longer because of the bit license and the additional legislation that we have here. But yeah, just for the rest of my American friends who live in the crypto freedom parts of America.
Okay. Now, I just wanted to backtrack a little bit. Now, I've got like all these Post-its in front of me with all these like questions that I've had and more questions that I keep on coming up. Back to the Propeller AI and what you're doing there with them. How did you build up that partnership with them, and how did you get into contact with these people to build or help build your neural net?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very fortunate in that my father is the owner of Propeller AI.
Well, okay. Well, that explains everything.
It's just one of those like.
I was like, well, I happen to know the owner of it, and hey, there you go.
So my father has got 2 masters in statistics. He's got 1 master's in theoretical statistics and another master in applied. He's been working in applying statistics into these fields for years, starting in assessment, going through to trading. He's worked for the government. He's 30 years in the industry. I'm also fortunate that as a result of growing up with him, I've been very exposed to statistics my entire life. So the ability to, which is great because that's given me the ability to conceptualize a system like this, right? So I've got a lot that I owe him for that because it is his influence that has allowed me to conceptualize a system like this. And yeah, I'm just fortunate that he's my dad.
Okay. That makes pure sense now. Okay, totally understand. So in regards to the team, I've met you two now, and I've had a little bit of a look over the other team members. Who's behind the entire project? Who's building what? How on earth have you found Haskell developers to help you out with the smart contracts? Or are you still looking?
No, we got them. We got them. That was hard. So let's start from the top of that. So we've got a few people that are there for corporate relationships, marketing, and community management, of course. That's something that every project needs. The concept, Jack's in charge of that side, by the way. They're the people that he's in charge of. So we've got 4 team members, 4 team members plus Jack doing that. And then we've got myself, who I would say the person who came up with the concept. So it's my design fundamentally. And I'm working with Ryan Feldkamp, who is our front end and JavaScript engineer as well as consultant. He helps me with some maths and with design. He has got, I believe it's a master's in software engineering, and is currently working at American Express.
So. Yeah, Amex.
He's working at Amex, and he's one of their back-end developers. Then we're working with my father and one of his proteges, of course. Mentees, I should say. Protege is a bit of a outdated term. Then we're working with a company. I don't want to mess up their name. I've messed up their name so many times. Imagine.ai. That's the ones. They're a set of Haskell engineers from Silicon Valley. There's 4 of them in the team that we're working with, and between them, they have 5 masters and 2 PhDs. So, and they're all specialized in Haskell, and they've spent the last 3 months basically hardlining Plutus because they want to get into this industry. And we were just very fortunate to find a team of 4 fully fledged Haskell engineers that also simultaneously wanted to do a project.
Okay.
Oh, and we tend to get are they Plutus pioneers? Are they in the program? I would say they're Plutus pioneers plus 1 in a way. A lot of programs open, you can find it. They found it, they saw it. To them, this is like, they have a PhD in that language and whatnot. So the sub-language is just so straightforward, and then they went right through it.
The way that they described it to me was Plutus Pioneers is like a post-it. I mean, for a PhD to do a post-it, it's not too much effort.
Yeah, what's the point?
yeah. But it's fantastic. They're incredible. We actually, hopefully, will be launching with our first liquidity pools on the testnet, with our full UI implementation within 2 weeks, so that people will actually be able to see us conduct a swap with the UI on the testnet and watch it happen.
So good.
I'll knock on wood on that. We'll say maybe 3 weeks, but yeah, that's what we're hoping for in terms of timeline.
Wow. Okay. Well, with the progression of Alonso moving on to testnet, it's more teams can actually do this. You are so lucky to have found that team.
Well, work makes luck.
Serendipity. Yeah. Even Steven and I met in an interesting way, like through a mutual friend, and then him and I work very well together. So it was I'm from New York, and so is Ryan Feldkamp. He's one of my friends, for example, our software guy. Our community managers, John and David, are also like New Yorkers that I'm familiar with, and it all came together in such a way. Yeah, serendipity is a great word to use for it, with how it just fell into place.
Because the reality is, I set this entire thing up during Melbourne's grand lockdown. So like during Melbourne's grand lockdown, I was there making connections with Americans, trying to meet teams in Silicon Valley. We had an Argentinian developer at one point as well. So I had a very busy lockdown.
We had this great idea. And when I got involved was after international markets. Well, at the time, it was just national markets. This was after that was getting started, and we were thinking, how do we get this into crypto and whatnot? And it originally started as I believe, ERC20. And then we said, there's new markets, there's better markets. And it's like you said earlier, a huge thing is not just the learning of the crypto, but it's the fact that my trade is costing the same amount in trading fees. So with Cardano, it's so brilliantly efficient. And Haskell isn't an easy language. It's notoriously not. However, it's rather efficient. So this chain we're expecting a very fast flowing chain, so to speak. And from what we've done when we do the pre-sale, the airdrops and whatnot, the rates of congestion for this chain, the speed for it, and the fees when you don't consider a very interesting token hold right now, it's not really a hold. The fees are very low and they're very manageable, and they don't seem to move around too much. And when you do a direct wallet-to-wallet transaction, like you're not worrying about any CFI to approve it beforehand, it's extremely quick.
Yeah, it's almost instant, and that gives us scalability, right? And to go on with what Jack said, even though we had that ERC20 ready to go, right? We were ready to go as an Ethereum project. As you said, you've been stopped from doing DeFi as a result of the gas fees, right? So if we wanted to focus ourselves on being a platform that brings aboard newcomers to the ecosystem to show them the power of these processes, we can't use a blockchain that doesn't motivate users to come on board and engage with these processes.
Yeah, precisely.
Right? As you're a living embodiment of, Ethereum does not motivate users to come on board and use them.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that was the biggest roadblock for me and the whole DeFi space. I heard about it and said, okay, that's great. How much will it cost me to actually do anything? Okay, that's really off-putting. That's incredibly off-putting. And then I guess you could look at Binance and what they got, but
I can completely understand if you don't want to use their C DeFi.
Yes. Cardano is much more safe when you say it's decentralized. You can say Binance is decentralized, and I'm not going to say it isn't, but you'll get some as in public, and maybe a head tilt here and there.
It's not. Look, I'm not going to be as diplomatic as Jack. Binance is not decentralized. I'm perfectly okay.
It has to be. That's
he's a marketing guy. I'm a dev guy. Yeah, it's not that decentralized. But what I will say to all of that though, and why I love Plutus, even though it's a lot harder to use, is that as a functional programming language, I don't know if you've done much programming yourself, Pete, but you can actually build in mathematical redundancies in your smart contract, where that if those redundancies aren't met, the contract doesn't execute. So an example of that would be with flash loans. I don't know if you've seen or heard of many of the flash loan scams or
I haven't.
Rug pulls. One of the principal ways that rug pulls take place on any chain, really, any of the Solidity chains, is through what's called a flash loan drainage, where essentially someone sends through a request to loan, and then they take advantage of a little click in the code that lets them pay back 1% of the total loan before the program says, yes, the loan is fully paid. So essentially you are withdrawing 100%, paying back 1%, now you keep 99%. And then you've got people that come in, find this little exploit, and then they do a loan for $27 million. They drain the entire account, and then they pay back $3,000, and then they walk away. But generally, they'll do it twice, and then they'll take out another $2,999 and pay back another $1.
That's incredible.
The big risk lately too.
Oh man, I got done with the uranium. Oh, I was involved with finding the uranium hackers, which is a totally side note, different story. But with respect to that, within Plutus, right, you would actually have a mathematical redundancy that states, unless the repayment is at least that of the withdrawal, then this entire thing is just no. Right? So that would actually be a top line of your code saying that unless this condition is met, nothing below that can execute.
Wow. Okay.
And the speed of Cardano keeps that safe too, because some of these flash loan attacks have a different style where, just to the congestion of Ethereum.
Mm-hmm. So front running is made a lot more difficult as well. Yeah, exactly.
Wow, interesting.
There's a lot of advantages.
I didn't know that. I do. My programming base is PHP, so object orientated to a point. Yeah. And I did start going through the Plutus Pioneer program, but I ran out of time. So I managed to get through the first lecture and then a part of the second. So I didn't get very far.
Well, look, I'll tell you what, you ran out of time. I ran out of will. That's why we hired engineers.
Well, if you got
it's fairly English, but then you just start throwing these random symbols around. Must be done in order. For the most part, very interesting language.
Okay. It is, and then you've also got the Lambda operations that you have to make sure you meet. Anyway, great stuff. I love it. Could talk about it all day.
Okay.
Don't want to do it though.
Yeah.
I do want to get my hands dirty and just get a really good grasp and understanding of the entire Plutus language, so I can actually at least write a really simple smart contract.
Yeah, absolutely. It is really cool, and the UTXO logic that Cardano used is also really interesting. Very original. And I also think it's much safer as well. The only little downside is that when you look at wallets, they're really super duper confusing because you have no idea what's going on when you receive something in your ROI and it's like, it's come from 7 different addresses. What?
Yeah. External and internal addresses. And Cardano has its own way of handling wallets and addresses, which is weird. Trying to talk to people to make like bots for Discords and whatnot. They're saying they're having some interesting problems that they've never faced. But yeah, now you have these internal and external wallets, and that's definitely a little confusing for some people. They'll be like, oh, hey, I got my VyFi, because, we do have the token minted on the Cardano net chain, and we're keeping it that way. No ERC20 VyFi. That would be silly. But we'll be sending it to people and whatnot. And with your OI, they'll see in these internal addresses, they'll be like, wait, where did it go? And it's like, oh, no, it's still in your address. It's just that page you're looking at. It generates a new address every time you get a transaction. So it can be a little confusing on even the user's end. They just have to make sure that they're looking at the overall
number. And that's why I'm really interested to see how Web3 is going to be implemented into Cardano. Yeah. Because that at the moment is actually what we're worried about as a project, is possibly being our biggest barrier to launch. Like if there isn't an effective MetaMask type process where you can just click a button, log in, and then functionally engage with the system, then the blockchain may launch on the 21st of September, but doesn't mean you can necessarily engage with it on the 21st of September.
That'll be a problem for everyone.
Well, there is one that's being done, and actually got launched. Ray's one, but Nami's another one. It works. Nami, yeah. Have a look at it. It works very much like MetaMask. It kind of looks like MetaMask, just with a different color scheme. One of the really cool implementations that the guy Alessandro put into place was the ability to delegate to a stake pool from a website. So it's fully interactive. So you go to a website where that stake pool is, you click on delegate, it will fire up a prompt to log into your NAMI wallet. Then you just connect and you delegated.
It's kind of like a trust wallet in a way. They have something similar where it's like baked into their website, I believe, to get to their DeFi.
Yeah.
Pete, I've already downloaded NAMI wallet, so we're going to go have a play with it straight after this.
Have a play. It may be the default wallet that everyone uses for DeFi.
Cardano. That's it.
Yep. It's built by a trustworthy developer. He's the guy that launched SpaceBuds, the very first I guess mass adopted NFT project on Cardano. So it's and he runs all his stake pools on Raspberry Pis. He's one of the main guys that built did all the builds for it. But yeah, there you go, guys. I really think NAMI wallet is the wallet that will help every last single DEX out there at the moment, because you don't want to be programming that while also doing your liquidity pools, your smart contracts, and everything else, your interfaces. So one thing less to take off your list.
That's it. I'm going to get this NAMI wallet over to my engineers now.
Yep.
So thank you for that. That's awesome.
So we've briefly talked about the roadmap, and you basically said that you are going to launch maybe in 2 or 3 weeks on testnet and have a live demo, and I can't wait to actually see it and see how it's all working. When is the mobile app and that kind of experience likely going to be available for users?
That's going to really come down to how long it takes for there to be a phone with a Web3 browser implemented into it, a phone app with a Web3 browser implemented into it.
It may have to be done through like Trust Wallet or something if they have support for that. Not really too sure. Then again, normally we wouldn't recommend that people do trading on a phone. That's the thing that you hear in crypto. But this is more so like, delegating to risk choices and whatnot. Will it be a proper app, or will it be those apps that you see more commonly nowadays that are pretty much just a web browser showing a web page
with a web page that allows you to click through? We're still not 100% sure on that.
Yeah, that's going to be something down the line.
The reality is it took MetaMask about 2.5 years before they implemented a web browser into their phone app. Now, I imagine just purely because of the scale of it now, as opposed to when MetaMask was doing it, it'll happen more quickly for the Cardano network, but it is still a matter of when that takes place.
So just fingers crossed. So I like that approach as well. So you're allowing people to connect directly to their existing wallet, or hopefully a NAMI wallet, or whatever mobile wallet, Web3 wallet we have. Yep.
If the ability exists, then without a doubt.
Yeah. And we're not creating a new wallet on your app, transferring stuff in.
No.
And then you guys be holding the keys.
No.
Never liked that idea.
No,
Good.
never liked that.
Brilliant.
And that's why if you put your money into the auto harvester, right, you get that LP token, or it's not going to be LP because that stands for liquidity pool token, and we're an auto harvester. So AH token. And that represents literally a percentage ownership share of everything that's held in that auto harvester. So from the harvest to the money that's contained within it, right? And that token is held in your wallet. So that means your wallet has that proportional representation of the auto harvester. We don't hold any keys.
Brilliant. Okay, last 2 questions. Firstly, when can I start making money off your platform?
After it launches.
Yeah, exactly.
As soon as possible, hopefully. Kind of waiting on Cardano, but also, we want to launch a product that's good. And that, God forbid, people do fork us down the line or something and they want to make it a DeFi on Cardano, then they're also coming with good programming to start with. Because we've seen on other chains, the V1s of some big DEXs and DeFis, they would all get forked, and the inefficiencies that were in their programming would scale up in a way, and then all of a sudden Ethereum gets congested. We've seen it happen a lot, but to that level, haven't seen that in a few years. So if people then fork our programming down the line, we see Cardano become a more adaptive and emerging ecosystem. We're talking over like the next few years. They'll have a good basis of programming. So, as soon as possible, but also we're not going to make any sacrifices to quality.
And that's it. That's the fortune that we have for being mostly self-funded. The only little bit of funding we have is what we'll be raising through our ICO, but that's mostly so that we can try and get full 2 years before we launch, so that we can get it all made. Because at the moment we've got the first at least auto harvester and DEX. We've got the funds to be able to build all that, and we have been. And the advantage of being self-funded is that I'm not really worried about an investor screaming at me saying, hey, we need this to happen now, we need this to happen now. Because the reality is I want to make money as quickly as possible as well, Pete. I really want to make money. But I don't want to sacrifice either the safety of our users' money, and I don't want to sacrifice our reputation.
Mm-hmm. And roadmaps are such a liability in a way. That's even our roadmap says this is uncertain. It's a goal. Some people, I feel like roadmaps almost set so many expectations where it's almost more pleasant to wake up on a day and go, oh, hey, look, they have a release, rather than go, do they have it today? No. Do they have it today? No. Checking every other hour, So we do have a roadmap, though, as you can see on the site. It's an outline of what we're going to be doing. Whereas I've seen some roadmaps are like hard promises throughout the years. But yeah, while we have it, we're going to try to adhere to it as best as we can. We already had to do a delay to it due to things out of our hands. I believe Alonzo was pushed back 1 month. It was about one. Yeah. So it's half. We're trying to do our best, but we also do have some circumstances out of our control.
Okay. All right. Brilliant. And my last question. How can the audience find out more about you guys? Where should they be following you? And what's the best point of contacts?
If the user's the kind of person who wants to get engaged and talk with people, then I would say the Discord would be a great choice, because that's, like I said earlier, it's more of a generic trading hub that happens to be hosted by VyFi. So you can talk about whatever. You can talk about competitors even if you want in the trading chat, preferably not in the VyFi chat. And that would be for a more engaged user, because we still post all the updates there. A user who wants to be less engaged, more so a lurker, as you would say, Facebook or Twitter. And a user who doesn't mind 1,000 notifications or just muting something and checking in here and there, that would be Telegram. Our communities all kind of serve a purpose. The Telegram is hardcore VyFi. The Discord is more so just like it's a crypto community hosted by VyFi. I hope I'm getting that across as best as I can, because it's all about just bringing people together.
I should want to also add to that, whilst it is a crypto community hosted by VyFi, we do have a very loyal community within there that are very interested in VyFi. It's not disconnected from VyFi.
We've tried to avoid hype marketing for the most part, and it's gotten us strong hands, I guess you could say, because we've seen what hype marketing has done to projects, and all of a sudden you have weak hands. Probably just joined crypto and trading and dealing with money like that for the first time. They see something go down or up, or they're not certain of what's happening. You have all these sell-offs and whatnot. And neither side wants that. Obviously, we don't want that. But fellow investors wouldn't want that. No one wants to get dumped on.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right. Brilliant. And they, of course, can also go to your website.
Oh, yeah, of course, our website.
VyFi.io.
That helps. I just wanted to mention that because it is a little bit confusing when you go through your YouTube channel, your videos and past stuff, or if you type in VyFi Finance or something, you get
VyFinance.
VyFinance.
You get virtual yard,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you get virtual yard. So VyFinance, that's actually a fun story you might quickly enjoy. An Australian IP troll has decided to set up a pretend car loan company called VyFinance, which is car financing, which doesn't actually do finance.
Virtual yard,
virtual yard.
Car yard.
Yeah, they're literally just IP trolling us. It's fun.
Yeah, but hey, VyFi.io is shorter, and app.vyfi.io will be nice and concise. So
very, very much so. Oh, you know you've made it when you've been IP trolled, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Right.
It's like, ooh, these guys will make it. It's kind of like a sign that you're heading in the right direction. So it's
that's it. We hope.
And with the upcharge they asked, it was a compliment in a way. It's like, oh, hey, you think we have that kind of money? I guess
yeah,
we haven't even launched
yet. Brilliant.
That is so true.
All right, thank you so much, guys, for joining me on this podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, Pete. Thank you so much.
I really hope everyone has gotten something out of this and have a better understanding of what the VyFi team are trying to achieve. Now, if you want to understand a little bit more, there are some additional videos and material that is online on YouTube. Check out Conwood Swift's YouTube channel, Crypto Loops, where he does an interview with Jack specifically to talk about all the technical aspects of what they have to offer. So they talk about the neural net and the bar a little bit more as well, and how the ecosystem all works. So check that out. He's doing a pretty cool job on his YouTube channel as well. Now, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, please consider giving us a 5-star rating and review on the Apple iTunes podcast store, whatever it is called these days. I think it's just called Apple Podcasts now. It really helps with the discoverability of this podcast and helps other newbies and beginners find the podcast. So please give us that lovely 5-star rating and review. And if you don't or want to find other ways to support our content production, you can delegate to our stake pool ADA-OZ, ADA-OZ, and we are slowly growing every epoch. It's really good to see, and thank you so much for those delegates that have reached out and said that they have loved the show, listened to it, and have delegated to our stake pool as well. It really, really does help, and I really appreciate everyone that has reached out and has told us as well. It's really cool engaging with the community. Now, you can find all the show notes for this podcast episode at cardanode.com.au/EP018, and that will take you directly to the show notes here, where you can find all the references and everything I've spoken about as well. Now, that's it for this podcast episode. Sorry it was a little bit long, but there was quite a lot of material I had to go through for that interview. And like I said, it was quite complex, but when they broke it down, it made it really easy. So until next time, everyone, please keep your seed phrases safe and secure, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really, it ain't no debating. IOHK, Emergo, we're not affiliated, not Cardano Foundation. We just gotta say it. A show that you can learn, and it's for your entertainment. Yeah, you gotta check it. Don't wanna be missing that. You were tuned in to the Learn Cardano podcast. Yeah, giving insight. Ain't another show like this when it come to crypto. Invest at your own risk. Might not be for everyone, but who it is for, we keep giving you some info and plenty more. Hey, yeah, the Learn Cardano podcast. Hey, yeah, the Learn Cardano podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Keep it locked right here. Let's go.